Hello everyone and welcome to GoW 3 Gameplay episode 12. Now this is also the last episode in this series, but I am going to be talking a little bit more about that at the end of the video, so I'm just going to get straight into it. So this was going to be quite a long video and it was going to include all sorts of things about my future plans and my thoughts on Gears of War in general and things like that. But I've decided that I've promised for so long to do this video about weapon balance that I'm going to just go straight in and do a single video on weapon balance, because if I get sidetracked anymore I'm not going to be happy that I haven't done this video. So all this video is going to be about is the weapon balance of Gears of War Judgment, and I'm going to be using the podcast that Epic Games released a few weeks ago, which goes through every weapon and tells us exactly how they're going to be for Judgment compared to Gears 3. Now I'm going to go through it in a little bit more of a sort of structured way, you know, starting off with the rifles or the starting weapons basically, then going to grenades and then going to power weapons, whereas in the podcast it was a little bit more unstructured, but the information is pretty much exactly the same. And hopefully after you've watched this video and my other videos, I will have told you everything that you need to know about Judgment. You'll be fully prepared for when it comes out, so you can just boot up the game, get straight into it and know exactly what you're going to be facing when you get there. So before I get into it, I'll just tell you a little bit about the gameplay that you're watching. You've probably noticed already that I'm playing with GoldGlove, who probably all of you will know if you're watching Gears of War videos on YouTube. Now, he was doing a subscriber Sunday type Love Your Butt Sub Days it's called, where he invites all of his subscribers in to play with him on various different games. And this week, the week that this was played on, it was Gears of War, and I happened to be on at the exact same time where it started, so I got in the first two games. And basically this video is going to show you highlights, probably, because I doubt it'll go on that long, of the two games that I played with GoldGlove and his other subscribers. So it's quite good. I do get killed a lot by him in the first round. I was garbage. I hadn't played Gears of War for so long, and there was a lot of lag to deal with, obviously, because they were all from the USA and it was on GoldGlove's host. But it was, you know, it was a great deal of fun. And if you want to see the highlights from his perspective, and also the full stream, you can go down to the description and see the links that I've put in there, and you'll be able to see the whole matches from his perspective. Now remember, I'm in the first two matches of the night, so you don't have to watch any more if you don't want, but I expect a lot of you are probably already subscribed to him or watch him on Twitch or whatever anyway, so you may have already seen it. But yeah, that's what you're going to be watching today. Two King of the Hill games with GoldGlove and his other subscribers, whilst I talk about the weapon balance for Gears of War Judgment. So the first thing that I want to say is something that I've mentioned, I think it was in episode 10, and it's about Down But Not Out. Now, Down But Not Out obviously isn't in anymore, apart from Execution, and that will give you a perception of it being harder to kill people. And that's because if you assume that the damage to kill someone is the same from Gears 3 and Gears Judgment, which I have heard that it is exactly the same, someone will get downed quicker from, say, Lancer Fire than they would get killed fully. But in Judgment, you're not going to have them get downed. So in Gears of War 3, you might put, say, 20 bullets into someone and they would get downed. Then you'd put another 5 bullets into them and they would die. Now it's going to take that whole 25 bullets before they actually die. So they're not going to actually get downed. You're not going to be able to down them, run up to them and kill them. You're going to have to put that whole amount of bullets into them before they die. So that gives you the perception that it's harder to kill someone. So it's going to require more bullets and more effort on your part to actually kill someone outright. And I did notice this when I played the game. It did seem harder to kill someone with the same weapons. Now I was playing Overrun, so downs was in there in a fashion, but I'm not sure exactly how that works compared to Gears of War 3. But it definitely seemed harder to kill someone, and it's going to feel like that with Judgment, because you're not going to be able to, you're going to have to, there's more chance for people to get away from your fire if they're in a bad spot. than there would have been in Gears of War 3, because they won't just get downed, they will have a little bit of extra time where they would have been downed to get away, essentially. So when I'm going through all these weapon changes and how they compare to Gears 3 weapons, just keep that in mind, that in general it's going to be harder to kill someone because of this down but not out being gone perception. So let's start off with a few generalities, and some of these you already know about. No stopping power and no active reload. Those are two pretty big changes that are going to make the game a lot more consistent, but we have been over them, so I'll just gloss over them now. So the first thing to note that's new really is that there are no distance based damage modifiers, which means that it doesn't matter how far away you are from someone, the damage for each bullet is always going to be the same, and it's just going to depend on how many bullets you can get in someone, which will determine how much damage you can put into them. So I think it might have been the hammer burst that had it so that you could the bullets from a distance were more powerful than they were from up close. Now I'm not sure exactly, I think it was that, but I think there was also something with the retro where the bullets from a distance weren't as powerful as those up close. Well, that's all gone now, and it's basically every bullet is exactly the same in terms of damage multipliers, and it just depends on how many bullets you get into a person before you kill them. Now that's a good change, I think. That will help with consistency for the game, and it should work well with this next change, which is that in general, and this is mainly for the rifles, there's more of a focus on lower damage per bullet but a faster rate of fire. So each bullet is going to do a little bit less damage than what it did in Gears 3, but the faster rate of fire means that you have more chance, if you are accurate with it, to get someone killed. So if you take the Lancer for example from Gears 3, the clip will empty a lot quicker than it did in Gears 3, but each bullet will actually do a lot less, a little bit, well, I don't know how much, but it will do a certain amount less damage than it did in Gears 3. So this rewards accuracy, and I think that's a good change. You know, you want to be accurate, to be rewarded for your accuracy basically, so that's a good change for me, I think. But let's move on to the specifics now, and I'm going to start with the starting weapons, which seems as good a place as any. So let's start with everyone's favourite weapon, the Sword Off. Now this has a lot of changes. You're not even going to be able to recognise it for the Gears 3 Sword Off. Basically it's codenamed the Gnasher Jr. Now for the new Sword Off, the spread of the bullets and the damage per bullet is exactly the same as the Gnasher. So you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between the Gnasher and the Sword Off? Because for all intents and purposes they are the same. And the only real difference is that the Sword Off has a 2-round magazine, so you're going to be able to get 2 shots off quickly, and then you're going to have to reload. Now it does have a faster rate of fire than the Gnasher, so those 2 shots that you can get off, you're going to be able to get off a lot quicker than someone who has a Gnasher. But then he's going to start coming back at you whilst you're reloading. So the Gnasher has sort of a consistent output of damage, whereas the Sword Off is sort of 2 shots off quickly, reload, then another 2 shots off quickly, then reload. But importantly, the time to shoot 8 shots is the same for both the Gnasher and the Sword Off. It's just how you get those 8 shots out that is the difference. Now there is one thing that is the same with the Sword Off in terms of Gears 3 and Gears Judgment, and that's that it can still gib multiple opponents at once. Now the only way you can do that with a Gnasher is by a headshot, so the Sword Off still has that in its favour. But I'm looking forward to trying this out. I'm probably not going to use it over the Gnasher, but it's a lot better balanced, let's put it that way, and it's sort of normalised against what the Gnasher can do. So it's no longer going to be a case of just running up to someone with a Sword Off, shooting, killing anyone in the general vicinity and run away again, because you're going to have to be just as accurate with the Sword Off as you are with the Gnasher, which is a really good thing for me, I think. It doesn't allow for that sort of noobiness that has sort of it's been ingrained in it since Gears of War 3. So I'm looking forward to using it, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when a battle, there's a Gnasher battle, but with the Sword Off. So one guy with a Gnasher, one guy with a Sword Off, and we'll see how the battle sort of turns when the sword off user gets his 2 shots off first but then has to reload. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. But yeah, it's a lot different, and it's probably the weapon that's changed the most since Gears 3, and it's a positive change for me, so there should be no more getting annoyed at being killed by a sword off, because if you got killed by a sword off, you probably would have been killed by a Gnasher as well, so keep that in mind. And talking of the Gnasher, this is pretty much almost exactly the same as what we had in Gears of War 3, although it is supposedly a tiny bit slower to fire. It is much faster than everything else though, supposedly, and there are only 8 shots in a clip, and you don't get multiple clips. That's it. Once you start with the Gnasher, you only get 8 shots, but hopefully that won't be too bad of a deal, because there are a lot of ammo boxes around, and you automatically pick up the ammo of other people, so it shouldn't make it too bad. Although I have seen some videos of, there's one video of Domination which is about 40 odd minutes long, and the person on there is using the Gnasher, and because it takes, I think it's about 3 bullets, where you would normally down someone in 2 bullets to kill someone, it seems like you run out of Gnasher ammo very quickly. I think ammo boxes are going to be a big deal in this. I mean, there did seem to be a lot of them about, and they did spawn quite quickly, so you are going to have to be picking up those ammo boxes quite a lot. But it'll be interesting to see what the Gnasher's like with a bit less ammo, and again that rewards accuracy, because as long as you can hit your shots, you're probably not going to be bothered about there being less ammo. So let's go on to the retro, and just to point out, I'm kind of doing these in sort of an order of how far away you have to be to use them. So we've started with the sword off and the Gnasher, which are really close range. Then I'm going to talk about the retro. Then I think the classic hammer burst is probably going to be next, because that's more of a close range weapon than what the Lancer is. So then it'll be the Lancer, then the hammer burst, which is obviously a more long distance weapon, and then finally the Marxer, which is the longest of long distance starting weapons. So let's get back to it, and the retro Lancer. Now this isn't as bad as it used to be in Gears 3 when it comes to hip firing. So if you're using the retro Lancer in both games, you'll notice that in Judgment it's a lot easier to hip fire than it was in Gears 3. But it's not as easy to kill someone. I think the damage per bullet has been reduced slightly, so it's kind of a trade-off in that regard. It's easier to hip fire, but it's not as easy to kill someone, so it should work out about the same. The big change is that bursting is harder to do, so you're not going to get killed halfway across the map from a retro Lancer, because the damage per bullet is so high, and someone has just happened to be able to burst fire it correctly. The base inaccuracy of the retro Lancer is a lot higher, so it's going to require a lot more skill to burst it across the map. And also the retro 2-piece is effectively gone. The poke does a lot less damage, and you can't now poke someone and instant melee or shoot them or anything like that. So there were a lot of annoyances with the retro, and hopefully these changes will go some way to bringing it back to be a more balanced weapon with the rest of them. Hopefully you won't see absolute pros running around with the retro just to get easy kills, which is what was the case in Gears of War 3. So hopefully a positive change there, but we're not going to know really until it gets used. Now the classic hammer burst, that is again balanced as a starting weapon. It's got it's supposedly 3 bursts for it to kill, but it isn't fully automatic, so you can't just hold the trigger down and it'll keep doing a load of bursts. You actually have to control when you get those bursts out of the gun. Now obviously it's a classic hammer burst, so it is a burst fire weapon, which is brilliant. It's good to see it back really, but you will need to sort of re-aim after each burst, because there is a bit of recoil. So after that, let's move on to the Lancer, the standard Lancer. That has its headshot multiplier removed, so no longer will you be able to just down someone with an active Lancer to the head in about 0.3 of a second, which was ridiculous. So if you shoot someone in the body, it's going to be exactly the same as shooting them in the head. The accuracy is also a tiny bit smaller, so it probably won't make that much of a difference. You're not going to notice that much of a difference with the Lancer when it comes to the differences between Gears 3 and Gears Judgment, apart from what I mentioned earlier, which is in general a little bit less damage but higher rate of fire. it's generally going to be a more support weapon, but will require a lot more skill to use, I think, to be fair. And I'm looking forward to using it, because the Lancer is one of my favourite weapons. I am mainly a support player, and I'm going to enjoy seeing how it differs from the Gears 3 Lancer. So let's move on to the Hammerburst. Now this is now fully semi-automatic, which means that you won't be able to hold down the trigger and it will fire sort of slow shots off anymore. It is actually going to require you to press the trigger for every shot. But modded controllers don't work on it anymore, and there is more recoil for when you shoot quite a lot. So people are going to have to sort of have a steady burst with it. There's not going to be as much abuse of it as there was in Gears 3. Hopefully that will help, because the Hammerburst was an absolute dog in Gears 3. I couldn't stand it. Some games that you entered, there was one on Mercy where they were just camping the whole game and there was nothing you could do. It took so long and nothing happened, and that was solely because the other team were using Hammerbursts. So hopefully that will help, and supposedly up close it's not as good either. So I'm looking forward to not necessarily using it, but playing in a game where it's not as powerful as it once was. And now, so that's a long range weapon, and now we're going to go to the longest of long range weapons, which is the Markser, which is a new weapon that's just been introduced solely for Gears Judgment. Now this is a very long range weapon. It's got a scope like a sniper rifle, but it is much more less powerful than the long shot. It's very hard to get a double headshot, which is what you need to kill someone. So, you know, one body shot and one headshot isn't enough to kill someone. It's also very weak in the body, so body shots are quite weak, and the recoil and rate of fire make it hard to get that double headshot or 3 body shots or whatever. So it's going to be more about putting in steady damage like the other rifles are, as opposed to taking people out. You know, there might be some pros who have a team of 5 people using a Markser and can just dome people all over the place, but I can't see it really. It seems very likely they seem to have balanced it as a starting weapon, which means it's not that powerful. And if you come across a breach shot or a long shot, you're going to be getting rid of your Markser, because it's not really on the level of any other power weapon, which is good. You know, it's hard for them to put in a new weapon like this and balance it correctly, but it's better to be on the safe side and make it a bit less powerful than make it too powerful and make it like a retro Lancer, basically. So I might try using that for a couple of times. You know, I am a support player. I might be able to use it for a bit of support from long distances. I'll probably stick with the Lancer, but I'll certainly be trying out all of these starting weapons, well, all of the weapons in general, just to get a general feel for them. But yeah, the Markser, it's not that powerful. It's more about putting in steady damage, just like the other starting rifles are. And there's one thing that just left to say about starting weapons, because there's only one that we haven't covered yet, which everyone will start with, the snub pistol. Now this is basically exactly the same as in Gears of War 3. Nice fast snub pistol with the same damage. It's going to be exactly the same. Now there aren't any other pistols in multiplayer. They're only available in campaign. Supposedly the Boltok is an absolute monster. But you know, the snub pistol is the only pistol you're going to see in multiplayer, and everyone is going to start with it. Really, I can see that as soon as you come across any other weapon other than a snub, you're going to want to switch it out. I mean, that's certainly what I'll be doing, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Maybe it's going to be enough to use a snub pistol instead of a Lancer, and you can have a Gnasher. I don't know, we'll have to see how it plays out, but basically it's exactly the same as the Gears 3 snub. Okay, so that's the starting weapons done. Well, some of the starting weapons anyway, because we now also get to start with some grenades, and we get to choose which grenades we start with. So let's go through these in order. First up, we've got the frags. Now these can stick to people, which obviously they couldn't in Gears of War 3, so if you throw it on someone and it hits their body, it will stick to them. And the damage that these frags have is less than half of that was in Gears 3. The radius is also reduced, so these are a lot less powerful than they were in Gears 3. They aren't power weapons anymore. They are they're a starting grenade, so they're a lot less powerful than what they were. Now remember, there is no tagging on walls or anything anymore, which is brilliant. I can't wait for it to be able to actually run and not be scared about running into a grenade. So these are going to require a lot more skill to get kills. They are, because they're starting grenades and they're a lot less powerful, I would say that they're more a case of clearing people out of the way than they are killing people. So say in domination there's a ring full of people, you can throw a grenade in to get people out of the ring rather than actually intend to kill them all. So it'll be interesting to see how they work and how many people actually choose them. Because the next one that we have is the ink grenade. Now the ink grenade has lost all its cringe, so if someone throws an ink at you, you're not going to cringe anymore, you're going to be able to get away. So those cheap kills aren't going to exist in Judgment. But there is a lot of damage in the area of effect. So it's basically an area of denial grenade. You can throw an ink grenade in it through a doorway or something, and someone's going to have to be very, very brave to be able to run through it because the damage is so high. Smoke grenades, these are pretty much the same. These are the only things that have cringe. So it's the same cringe as in Gears of War 3, and they act the same as in Gears of War 3. However, the smoke is better now because you can't use your TACCOM through it. You know, before, if there was a smoke, you would be able to hold LB and be able to see people through it. You can't do that anymore. So it raises an interesting question of whether you could use a smoke grenade and a beacon grenade together to be able to see where people are, but whilst they can't see you. That might be an idea for two people on a team to try out. Then we've got two new grenades, which is the stim grenade, which is obviously you can heal. You throw that down, and as long as you're in the area where it works, you will be healed a lot quicker. So you can use that, say, if you're in cover and you want to put a bit more fire down than you normally would, you can put a stim grenade right on you and then be able to fire a lot whilst taking a lot more damage. Or you can also use it to throw in an area to allow people to run through it. So say someone's put an ink down in the doorway, like I was mentioning before, someone on your team could throw a stim grenade on that same area, and that would allow you to run through this supposedly area of denial place. So I think the stim grenade is a good idea to sort of counter the ink and also, you know, help you out or help your teammates out in a support role when they need a bit of extra health. And the other new grenade is the beacon grenade, which spots enemies in the area of its effect. So if you throw it against a wall, it will show up where those enemies are behind the wall and spot them for you. So if they move, you will see them for a few seconds. Now I'm sure you know how important spotting is, so these are going to be really handy. I don't think you're going to want a full team of them, but you're certainly going to want to use them quite regularly. And I love this new loadout system. I know I've mentioned it before, but the idea of all these grenades having their own role, and it depends on, you know, what the other team are doing as to what grenades you can use. Like putting a smoke and a beacon grenade together is, you know, it's a brilliant idea. It makes sense. And using a stim grenade to counter an ink, it makes sense. So there's lots of little things like this that will all come in. And as you play the game a lot more, you're going to learn a lot more about which grenades are going to be best. And I think certainly a balance of all grenades on a team is going to be the best way about it. But I'm looking forward to using probably all of the grenades. I think I'm not that bothered about frags, but the rest of them, the ink, the smoke, the stim, the beacon, I'm going to be using them all quite a lot, and I'll find out which ones I like, which ones I don't like, which ones suit my style. And I might find that you need to use all of them at some point. So it's going to be interesting to see. But there is one grenade that we haven't talked about yet, and that's because it isn't a starting grenade. It's a power weapon, basically. The incendiary grenades. Now these were always called baby nukes for Gears of War 3, and they're no different in Judgment. They are pickup only, and they're very, very, very powerful, supposedly. So we are going to be seeing a lot of people killed with incendiary grenades, just as we were with Gears 3. But again, you can't start with these weapons, and ammo boxes don't increase their, you know, replenish them. So this is fine, you know. They are now a fully fledged power weapon, which is fine with me. And speaking of power weapons, we might as well move on to that. And let's start with the biggest one, the boom shot. Now, this has slightly increased its base damage, which might surprise you, and it does still have 3 shots like it did in Gears of War 3. But the reason that the Epic employees gave for it increasing its base damage is because there's no active damage anymore. So the damage for the Gears of War Judgment boom shot is kind of in the middle of the base damage for Gears of War 3 and the active damage for Gears of War 3. There's also a bit more splash damage, so kills will kind of not be as crazy as the Gears of War 3 active boom shot, but they'll be close, you know. It's a weapon that you are going to want to fight over, basically. It's still going to be an absolute monster. But there is actually now another monster to rival the boom shot, and that's the Bushka. So this has been designed to be sort of in the boom shot territory of weapon, and it's basically a big grenade launcher. You can fire balls off walls and then into areas, and then those balls will explode after a short amount of time. There's 3 shots per clip and 2 clips, so you get 6 shots in total. And this is again another weapon that's going to be highly sought after. It's like a boom shot. It's a little bit different to a boom shot, but it's in the same class of weapon basically. It's just as powerful. So it's going to be interesting to use that and see how it affects the gameplay, and it's especially going to be interesting to use it in Overrun, which I think it was designed for, to kill maulers when they've got the shields up. It's the only thing that you can really use. There's a pro tip there for you. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how the Bushka is used and whether it actually eclipses the boom shot as a weapon to have. I doubt it will, but we'll see, because it does have more bullets in it. So just 5 more power weapons to go then, and let's get through them. The Digger, which is faster underground than it was in Gears of War 3, but otherwise exactly the same. The Torque Bow now has a sped up charge time. It's quicker to get a shot off, but it does take a little bit longer for a full stick. The damage without a stick is kind of in between what the Gears of War 3 active and non-active damage was. So really you're going to want to get that stick to kill someone, but you know, in a tight situation you are going to be able to put a bit of damage on by just putting it close to an enemy. The Scorcher is exactly the same as it was in Gears 3. It's an absolute monster. I'm going to be using that whenever I can. I'm sure a lot of people will, because it's kind of the one that everyone forgets about, but it is an absolute monster. The Long Shot. This has now the Gears of War 2 style scope, and it has 2 layers of zoom. It has a lot more body damage than it did in Gears of War 3, and you can kill multiple people in a line with headshots just like you could with the Torque Bow in Gears of War 3. So that'll be one for the montage kids out there. And this does seem quite a big power weapon now because of the bigger body damage. You know, even if someone can't consistently get headshots, if they can keep getting body shots and you're working as a team, this can be a really, really good weapon to use in that regard. And finally we've got the Breach Shot, which is obviously a new weapon. Now this is a mid-range kind of weapon, decent body damage with a single headshot, but there is no scope, so it rewards accuracy. It's kind of like, it's much better than the Markser, obviously. The Markser is a starting weapon, and it's kind of like a closer range long shot, where you don't have the scope on it, but it's got the same kind of capabilities with the decent body damage and the single headshot. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen in a set kind of mid to far range fight between the long shot and the breach shot. It can also shoot multiple shots at once, whereas the long shot is obviously just one shot reload, one shot reload. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the actual game. Now there is one thing to talk about as well, which is the boom shield. Now you can hold any weapon with the boom shield. In Gears of War 3 it was only a pistol that you could use. Now you can hold any weapon, and it can still be planted on the floor, although you can't throw a grenade with the shield anymore. So if you want to be throwing anything, you're going to have to drop the shield. It'll just drop automatically. But holding any weapon with the boom shield should be quite an interesting addition, and probably makes it more of a power weapon than it ever was before. Also, being melee'd isn't as bad as in Gears of War 3. if you miss a melee, you get penalised a lot more. So hopefully that incentive won't be there to actually melee someone. I would hope it isn't, because it's really annoying and we don't want to see the two-piece come back anytime soon. But yeah, it's not as bad as it was in Gears of War 3. Now there is one thing that hasn't been mentioned, although, well, I haven't seen it being mentioned anywhere, and that's heavy weapons such as the mortar and the one-shot. I haven't seen this mentioned. I've seen a few people ask questions about it, but I've never seen any proper definitive answers or discussion on it. And I guess this is probably because they're not going to be in multiplayer. They probably are going to remain in campaign, and they'll be in certain areas and certain aspects of campaign. But I expect that they probably won't be in multiplayer anymore. They weren't used that much, to be fair, and they were quite slow to use, and Judgment is a much faster paced game. So yeah, I can't see these heavy weapons being in multiplayer anymore. You might feel different, you might think that they are going to be in, but with the amount of pickup weapons that we have now in Judgment, I think that all of the slots will just be filled by the regular pickup weapons rather than these heavy weapons. Okay, wow, I've just looked at how long I've been talking for, and I can't believe I've been able to ramble on for 30 minutes about weapon balance in Gears of War Judgment. Why didn't you guys tell me I was going on this long? This is unbelievable. Now, you've probably noticed that the video of me playing with GoldGlove stopped about 6 minutes ago, so I'll have to put some extra stuff in. Oh my god, I can't believe I've gone on for 30 minutes. What am I doing? Right, well, okay. I suppose it's a good way, it's just as good a way as any to finish the series, because this is the last episode in the Gears of War 3 gameplay series. It's been fantastic to get into commentating with with Gears of War 3. It has been one of my favourite games, and it's been really interesting to develop my skills sort of as I've gone along the series, and I'm really looking forward to Judgment coming out and bringing lots of content to you guys. But yeah, this is the last episode of Gears of War 3 gameplay. There are 2 more Gears of War videos on the horizon. There's going to be a kill feed gameplay and 1 more update video, so make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss that out, and if it is already out, I'm going to link it in an annotation in the top right about now. But because I've gone on for over 30 minutes, I'm going to just have to end this now, and I can't really say too much more. So yeah, everything's going to be in that update video, which will be out in maybe 2 or 3 days, and I hope you continue to enjoy all the stuff that I do for Judgment in the future. Thanks for watching this series, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed it and learnt a lot from it. I've certainly learnt a lot from it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.